I'm here to talk about REMAP. REMAP is a nationwide organisation with its headquarters, surprisingly, in Kent, in Kemsing. I'm often asked what REMAP stands for. On the left is what it actually stands for. On the right is what some wag decided that it could also stand for. REMAP was founded in 1964 towards the end of the polio epidemic, when an engineer in ICI started to make aids for his sister who had suffered polio and was really needing something to help her walk. And that is how REMAP started. It is now expanded, and there are something like 900 engineers scattered across the country in what we call panels, 90 panels. A panel is a geographical grouping of mainly engineers, but obviously we have a chairman, we have a secretary and things like that. Our headquarters, as I've already said, is in Kemsing. And this is what we do. We make bespoke equipment for people with disabilities. The idea is to help them overcome their disability, to help them have a better place in society. It can be to help them in their home, with mobility, at work, or play. Our product is free at the point of delivery, and our jobs come from a whole variety of places. Occupational therapists is the principal area where we get asked to do work for, because they work all the time, or almost all the time, with disabled people. Occasionally doctors. In fact, my own doctor has already referred 2 jobs to me over the course of the last few years. Social services we get jobs from. In fact, I was in Pembury Hospital a couple of years back, and I was able to beat social services round the year to embark on giving us some more jobs. We also get work coming in from charities, special units, and occasionally self-referral. If we get a job which is self-referred, we try and get a health professional involved in some way or another, particularly an occupational therapist. This is because one of the things that we work towards is the Medical Devices Directive, and that underpins the work that we do. A typical panel, that's a grouping of engineers and others, can have between 6 and 25 members, although you'll see in a moment a job from Basingstoke where they've actually only got 3 engineers, and it's incredible the number of jobs they get through. The referrals, a panel does between about 20 and 80 jobs a year, and each panel is self-sufficient. We raise our own money. Although there's a headquarters, they raise the money to run the organisation as a whole, and of course one of the principal costs that's associated with the work that we do is third-party insurance, which costs a hell of a lot of money when you come to think that 900 people are doing jobs and might make a mistake. Fortunately, we've never had to use the insurance. Let's have a look at some of the jobs we've done for helping children. And by the way, I'll point out that in the top right-hand corner, or top right-hand corner of most of the slides you'll see, it'll show you which panel, which geographical group has done the job. This was done for a little girl in Otford by, funnily enough, a man who lived in Otford, and she had a deformed hand and was insistent on riding a bicycle, and could we help? And so what we did, or what the engineer did, was to make a little cup for her left arm and change the brakes so that the right-hand brake operated both wheels. Here's a job from Basingstoke. It's, funnily enough, it's one of the jobs that we've been asked to do several times. A blind lady has a baby in a pushchair and also has a guide dog. how does she cope with those two? And this was the solution. She pulls the pushchair behind her, so it's a pull chair rather than a pushchair, and holds the guide dog in her left hand. And the arm is just tied, is the best way of describing it, around her waist. Can you see? I see people leaning. Would it be better if we turned the lights out? Some of the... This is a job which was done jointly by a panel in Caithness and Hertfordshire. And they managed to design a page turner. And this little girl had very, very limited movement, and she could really only just press a button. She couldn't turn the pages of her book. And so a very complicated piece of engineering was developed because Caithness had a requirement and Hertfordshire had a requirement. Now, of course, you've got Kindle and all sorts of things like that. So that was quite some time ago. Helping adults. Very simple adaptation of a shower control. Here's one to where a lady who has very limited strength to help her open her bin. And I see Melanie laughing there because she's going to say to me when we get home, how about doing that for me? This was one which was done in Kent West, where a one-armed person needed to use the stove, and of course when you normally hold the pan in one hand and stir with the other, if you've only got one hand, then that's a bit difficult, so we built a little guard around the burner. Here's I find difficulty opening cans in any case. Again, if you've got limited hand movement or only one hand, opening a can can be a trial. Well, there's a device, you just shove your tummy against it to hold the can in position, and if you've only got one hand, you can then use the can opener. This is one that I did myself. Although it says Croydon, I did actually take over as chairman of Croydon for a while. This was done for a young man who had very serious diabetes, as a result of which he was blind, and he'd also lost the bottoms of both of his legs. So he was blind and in a wheelchair, and so to get onto the toilet, he had to slide sideways from his wheelchair onto the toilet. Now, most toilet seats are pretty flimsy, but they're made to sit on, not to slide on. And how could we avoid this young lad keep breaking toilet seats? So the answer was to get a wooden seat, put some bigger hinges on it with lots and lots of araldite in the screws and and then make two nylon blocks so that when the seat was down, as he slid sideways, the nylon blocks stopped the seat moving sideways. I did that job about 8 years ago, and as far as I know, it's still working. This is an interesting one. Modern technology. About 4 weeks ago, we were asked if we could help a young lady who was severely disabled, was concerned that she couldn't feed herself. If she fed herself principally with a spoon, she tended to ram the spoon into the back of her throat. Could we help? Well, it just so happens that a chap called Sam Watson on my panel has access to 3D printing. And so what you see there, but that is a 3D printed spoon with a guard on it, rather like a dummy, so that the young girl didn't force the spoon into the back of her throat. We also do jobs for people at work, and here's work that was done to help a young lady sorting letters. And this was done by the old Medway panel. Unfortunately, the Medway panel no longer exists, for a lady who wanted to be a manicurist, and could we help? And the engineers in the Medway made those little sticks with V's on the top and a series of holes. You can see what looks like a straight line is actually a series of, the black straight line is a series of holes, so that she could put the finger rests into different positions to suit the size of different sized hands. We also get involved with recreation and sport for disabled people, and it doesn't need me to tell you that, of course, a lot of disabled people do get involved in sport. Here's one that Great Yarmouth made a special landing stage to help disabled sailors get into their boats. There's also an organisation called Sailability, which helps disabled people, and the panel in Farnborough in Hampshire gets very, very involved with sailing at Frensham Ponds, just outside of Farnham. Here's self-explanatory, helping a disabled person mount a horse. And this is Abby. This is one of our most interesting jobs. Abby has cerebral palsy, and she has taken up a sport which involves throwing clubs, is the best way of describing them, quite large clubs. And she's so good at it that she travels all over the world. In fact, just recently, I think she's been out to Venezuela. But we were asked if we could make a special strong chair for her to use when she's throwing clubs. And as you can see, it has to be restrained. That chair was built in steel. As luck would have it, we've got access to a company with specialist welding facilities, and they have offered to turn this steel chair into an aluminium chair to make it easier for Abby and her family to travel abroad on an aeroplane. The engineer who did that job won one of the prizes. We have an annual general meeting every year, and at that meeting, prizes are given for the best jobs that have been done during the last year, and that particular job won one of the prizes. If you ever feel like joining REMAP as an engineer, or alternatively, if you feel you know somebody who could benefit from the work that we do, that's where you start, www.remap.org, and that'll guide you through to the nearest panel so that you can make contact with the panel. And as I say, there are 90 scattered around the world. Around the country. There used to be 3 in Kent. Unfortunately, my panel is the only one that still exists. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.